Hello, my name is Margaret Adele, and welcome to a really long Indie August video. I have needed to do this for a while, but I was really nervous to put out something that's probably going to be like over 25 minutes at the least. Here's hoping. So if you've been keeping an eye on my channel, you will know that I do a lot of indie book reviews, and most of those are sent to me by the author at the author's request. Occasionally, I will see a book I like on Twitter and try to ask for a review copy myself. However, I do have a standard set of rules that I follow. And if you see the glare in my glasses, because my laptop is open just behind the camera, because this thing is 4 pages long and I don't remember all of it by memory. Now, this is available on Google Docs for you to check out yourself. If you have sent me something before and you're like, oh crap, I did the thing that she said on there not to do, don't worry about it. This is really just something for future requests. If you sent me something and there was something in the message that maybe I wasn't that big of a fan of before, I'm not going to hold it against you because you didn't know. I didn't have it written down anywhere. So let's jump right into it. The first section on the review policy is what I review. In general, mostly anything. I will do any age range from picture books up to adult, including kidlit, MG, YA, NA, any of that. I've learned that indie YA is a different beast than traditional YA, so I don't mind it as much. Genres, about any kind of genre as well. I will say that I am iffy on anything that is magical realism or a YA contemporary set in high school, unless it has like darker elements, like it's a high schooler dealing with, trauma of some kind, or there's some greater emphasis on, race relations, the hate you give, etc. But pretty much anything. That does not mean that anything you send is guaranteed to be accepted. There might be something in the premise that just doesn't call to me, or doesn't call enough to be added to a very long list. At any given time, I have a minimum of like 10 books to review sitting on myself. So I have to make sure that every book that I accept is something that I genuinely want to read, something that I am genuinely interested in. That does not mean that your book is not worthwhile if I decline. That does not mean that there aren't a ton of other readers that would love it. It just means that for me, I either don't get super excited about the premise or not excited enough to justify adding it to a very long list. Now, I will also accept poetry, graphic novels, children's books, like I mentioned before, picture books, and nonfiction texts. But there's a fairly large warning in this. I have a bachelor's degree in history and a master's degree in museum studies, and I have interned in multiple different historical museums and historical sites. So, if you are sending me a history book, a nonfiction historical text, I expect like industry standards. I expect footnotes and works cited or a bibliography. I expect the research to be there. If you're going to try to send me a nonfiction history book and I don't see footnotes, it's automatic no-go. It's minimum of like, a 2-star, because those are literally the baseline for those. So I might be a little bit more harsh on those. I am more lenient on historical fiction. However, if you have like gigantic errors of fact, it will definitely hurt your rating. I am that reviewer that rates down for major historical inconsistencies, although little ones can slip by. There are no restrictions on page limits. I will review anything from novella under 100 pages to over 500 pages. The only thing I ask is that you understand what you're going to get for that kind of size. For example, a novella of, 50 pages is going to get a much shorter video than the average book that's like 300 pages. And if you send me a 600-page tome, you are going to get a much longer waiting period, because mama's got to be in the mood to tackle something that big. So it might push yours a little bit farther back. It might be a little bit later than the 6 to 8 weeks that I usually promise with reviews. And that's just kind of the nature of the beast. Totally random side note, I don't do cookbooks. No one's like sent me one or anything, but like I wouldn't know what to do with them if I did, and I don't even know if you review cookbooks. It's just not a kind of book I'd ever work with. All right, let's get into the nitty gritty of how to send a request for review. I prefer email over everything else. Twitter DMs are also acceptable. Instagram DMs, I don't know what it is about the app on my phone, but trying to type on that app for my phone is really weird, and I don't like it, and it's annoying. So in general, email's number one preferred, Twitter secondary preferred, Instagram not at all. You can find my email either in the review policy or down in the description below. I usually at this point will have it in the description of basically every video I post, more or less. I've gotten used to just including the same information in the description of every one. So you should be able to find it fairly easily. In this email, I need a variety of information. The genre, the age range. You don't necessarily have to give me the page count, but if it's something exceedingly small or exceedingly long, maybe let me know. So like if it's under 200 or over 500, let me know. The characters in general, or at least the protagonist, the setting, basically the blurb on the back. Now, you don't have to send me the exact blurb on the back of the book that's like on Amazon or whatever if you think a different version might entice me more, which it has happened. I've had people who send me like a different blurb that's on the back, and I'd be like, yeah, this blurb is better. So feel free to mix it up. As long as it's still true to the story, I don't really care. But I do like to know the general gist of what I'm getting into. The more information you give me, the more likely I am to say yes. So once I have the general synopsis, the general blurb of your book, I may ask for clarification if something in the blurb confuses me, or if you are writing from a demographic that you are not yourself a part of, or I can't tell if you're a part of it. A lot of authors will write from like pen names and they won't have their faces, their, Twitter profile or whatever. So if I see that you're writing from, a Latinx, is that how you pronounce that? A Latin protagonist, and I don't know that you yourself are, I will probably ask, not necessarily that you have to be from that demographic, but you have to put some effort into representing it the best way. So I will ask, are you from this demographic? Do you have personal experience, professional experience, or have you done research? For more sensitive topics, for example, sexual assault, you will not have to specify which one of those. So I will usually ask, are you yourself a survivor? Do you have professional or personal experience, or have you researched? And you just have to say yes. You don't have to say which one of those you are if you're not comfortable telling me that you are a survivor. You do not have to. However, if you do, I request that you also let me know if that fact is public, because I don't want to accidentally out anyone. I don't want to accidentally reveal something that wasn't intended on being revealed. So if you're, queer but still in the closet, you gotta let me know. I don't want to accidentally out you. So if you're not out to the world, then I wouldn't say that book is Own Voices or bring that up in the review. I don't need to reveal anyone else's secrets, so you gotta let me know if it's a secret. Also, and this has only happened once, but it was aggravating. Do not argue with me or give me a long monologue about how asking for research on these kind of things limits a writer's artistic freedom. I'm not a fan. I require writers to be the very best they can be. I require authors to do the very best work, and that includes knowing what the hell you're talking about. So yes, if you are not from that demographic, I expect you to have done something else other than just, I knew a Spanish guy once, to make sure that your representation will be the best. And if you're going to monologue at me about it, about how I'm limiting whatever, I don't see the need in reviewing your book. I don't deal arguing. Do not argue with me about my standards. I have them for a reason. Also, please do not attach a PDF to the email at first. If I agree and we have talked back and forth, then yes, send me the e-arc. Don't send it with that first email. That is way too much pressure for both sides, because then you're kind of secretly hoping that I'm going to read it, and I'm like, wow, I really feel pressured to read this, but now because I feel pressured, I don't really want to. Save it. Save it for when we've actually said, yes, this is a thing that is going to happen. Just good form. All right, so like I mentioned before, I will accept e-arcs as well as physical copies, either or. Physical copies might get a little bit different treatment than an e-arc, but both will get a review. Physical copies will usually also get a Bookstagram photo. I don't really do them for e-arcs because trying to photograph an e-reader with glare and everything is just a lot more complicated. So that's usually something I reserve for physical copies. If you did send me a physical copy, thank you so much. I also love them signed. It doesn't have to be a very long-winded message. Sometimes the authors do, sometimes they don't. Just your name, because if you blow up years down the road, I want a signed copy of one of your first books. It adds a lot of value to it, and it makes it more special. The only acceptable deadline to give in this request for review is the date of publication. If it has not been published and is going to be published soon-ish, then you can be like, hey, can you get a review out before this date? In that instance, I will need the physical book in my hands or the e-arc on my e-reader a minimum of 2 weeks out from the date of publication. That way I can get it out in time. Because I am a mood reader and I gotta make sure that I have enough wiggle room to be in the mood to read it. Because I always want to try to get it out before the date of publication because that is a huge day and can help increase sales exponentially. But you gotta work with me. If I decline to review a piece of your work for whatever reason, as long as you don't argue and as long as I didn't say no because of, iffy things you've posted online, which could be a reason I decline, you are free to send me another request for a different book. Not the same series, obviously. But if you've written another one and you think I might like that one, you can feel free to send it, even if I've declined something else. Now here's the awkward part. I do believe in buying indie books, hardcore, and I have bought a lot. That being said, I do not give reviews for books that I've purchased myself. Because I've already received so many free arcs from other authors, it's disrespectful to them, as they did not get any of my money, to then give money and a review to someone else. So if you send me like a buy link, I might buy it. It might be included on my channel. Big mights. But the only way to be certain that you will get a review is to send a review copy at no cost. And I know that sounds so greedy, but the idea being that I want to give every indie author something, either money or hype. The next part is what I call the waiting, because you will probably be waiting for a hot minute. I mentioned before that my average time for review is 6 to 8 weeks, thereabout. Keep in mind that at any given time, I have as much as like 10 to 12 books on my list. And obviously, I'm going to try to get to yours, but I do not review on a first come, first served basis. Because I am a mood reader, it works best for both of us if I am in the mood for that particular book. And I get a gigantic range of work. I've gotten a cute mid-grade fantasy. I've gotten a tense historical thriller, with a serial killer and all of that. I need to make sure that I am in the best headspace for that book, so I'm not just going to review each in a strict order as they come. I also will read books for readathons. They're very common on BookTube, and they each have specific prompts, and I usually will try to fit at least a couple review books in every readathon that I do. And so I think for the most part, I've never gone a month without at least having at least one indie book review, but yours may be a little bit later. I also try to work things out during the time of year. So like doing a spooky book for review in October or something like that. So there's a variety of reasons why your book might be pushed around and be out of order than the order was sent in. And I need you to be patient because I know that it takes a long time. But believe me, it's not because I'm being lazy. It's because I've just got a little bit of a pile of work in front of me. Now, if you are curious as to whether or not I have gotten to your book yet, there is one thing, and one thing only you can do, and that is check my Goodreads. I've gotten really good at keeping up to date with exactly what I'm working on. I will usually remember to add that I am currently reading this book the day I start it, so you'll know right away. Do not message me asking if I've read it yet. That's, again, more pressure, and again, if I had every author that I had books doing that, I would be fielding DMs every day. And I know the wait is killer, but it's a lot less pressure for me even if I know you're waiting, if I don't have to keep up with where your book is on the list. So you can follow my Goodreads. I will have the link of it both in the review policy and down below. Again, you do not have to follow me on Goodreads. You do not have to be a subscriber to get a review, but it helps. And I'm not going to take questions in DMs on whether or not I've read it yet. Also, I'm not going to take questions on whether or not I'm liking it if I am reading it. You will get my thoughts in a full 10 to 20 minute review. I do not need to give them while I'm reading. So this is actually something I've added. I have not had any problems with this so far, but just to cover my own butt, during this interim period, if, like a lot of the indie authors that I've worked with, we are mutuals on Twitter, or at least I know what your Twitter is, if I see you tweeting or posting on Instagram or retweeting without comment, which does imply agreement with what's being said in that tweet, anything that is hateful, judgmental, or bigoted towards a minority group or people group, whatever it is, I reserve the right to renege on my promise to review. And that is not something I will argue about either. If you have shown yourself to be a hateful, bigoted person, I don't want to give you hype. So now if you happen to accidentally retweet without comment when you meant to retweet with comments, you know, arguing against whatever the tweet was, that's one thing. And of course, I'm up for that. It's a simple mistake, but make sure it's an actual mistake and not just you trying to cover yourself. Now on to the review itself. So there are multiple steps in what you will get if I get a copy of your book for review. You will get a several paragraph review on both Amazon and Goodreads. It will be the same review, copy and pasted. The Amazon review will usually come out later because Amazon has that thing where if you're not a verified buyer from them, they have to like review your review. So the Goodreads will come up first and then the Amazon will come up. If you have another website that you would like me to review on, you can send me the link and I'll review on there as well, like Barnes & Noble or something similar like that. There will also be, and this is probably the big kicker for most people, a video review. This will be give or take 10 to 20 minutes. It will be shared on Twitter. You do not have to share the review on any of your social medias, but it's really awesome for me if you do. I had one indie author that shared the review and he has such a supportive group of friends that I got like 3 or 4 new subscribers within like a couple hours of that thing being live. So like really like it. The indie authors share the review on their socials. You can also embed it on any website you have. That's perfectly fine. I love getting my face out there and you get more hype for your book. So like I mentioned before, the extent of the video will vary, give or take between 10 to 20 minutes. And that's vaguely what I've timed them at so far. I cannot guarantee any time ahead of time. It might be under 10 minutes if it's a novella. I think I currently have one book on my list that's like 67 pages long. That's probably not going to be a full 10 minutes. I try not to go over because I've just noticed that videos over 20 minutes are less likely to be viewed by casual viewers. So that's something for my channel. I'm trying to, you know, play with the algorithm and all that. But I will try to make it as meaty as possible for what it is. The review itself will be as spoiler-free as I can possibly make it, with one exception, and that is trigger warnings. I will try my best to make sure any trigger warnings I give don't spoil anything too much. Like, I won't necessarily say what it refers to exactly. If I say, oh, trigger warning for sexual assault, I won't necessarily say when in the book it happens or to what character it happens, just that it's there. It may still end up spoiling a little bit of the story, and while it's unfortunate, I'm not going to apologize about that, because as of right now, even as small as my channel is, I have already had multiple people tell me that they have bought and read books based on my recommendations, and it gives me all the feels, but it also puts a lot of pressure, because the last thing in the world I want is for someone to have a panic attack or have their day destroyed or their month destroyed because of my recommendation, because I didn't warn them ahead of time. So I will try to keep them from spoiling the story, but trigger warnings will always be a must. And again, I'm not broken any argument about it. That being said, I do not personally have any triggers, so you do not have to give me the trigger warnings. I'm not gonna lie, if you include them in your email, it makes you look a hell of a lot more professional in my eyes. It makes you look like, okay, this is a dude that knows what they're about and they're on it. but you do not have to. Nothing will ruin my day. Nothing will catch me by surprise. I am very fortunate in that I do not have any triggers. All right, the next section is called Afterwards, after the review is up. I mentioned before that you can share it to any of your socials as well as embed it in the site. If you have questions or something that you want to let me know after the review, feel free to contact me. I've had one author that was like, oh, hey, BTW, I'm also from this demographic of people. And I was like, oh, cool. I should have added that in my review. I've had one author that was like, oh, hey, I saw your review and I really agreed with the critiques, but could I get a little bit more help with da-da-da-da? And that was actually a fantastic conversation when we talked about how, you know, what I thought and ways that she could improve her writing in the future. It was a really great conversation. That being said, again, I don't want anyone to argue with me. So if you're annoyed at the star rating it got, or you're angry at my critique and you come at me being all, you know, aggressive, you will be on my blacklist. And we will not be working together in the future. I will not be reviewing any of your other books in the future. No exceptions. I do not like confrontation, especially when, you know, I'm already putting in hours of work to get hype for your book. I really don't need you to argue with me after the fact. And in general, you shouldn't be arguing with your reviewers regardless. That's just bad form for authors in general. Now this has yet to happen, but it might, and that is if after the fact my review, my star rating of your book has changed in my head. I've thought about it and I either bring it up or down for whatever reason. I may change the Goodreads and Amazon review, but I'm not going to change the video review. The video review, once out, is there. Unless I discover that like some part of the book that I didn't know was horribly offensive and a stereotype and comes out that it is, maybe I'll take it down. But I mean, that's a very specific occurrence. In general, the video will stay up. So next up is, what if your book is the first in a series? Will I be open to reviewing the next one? And for this one, we look to the star rating. If your book is a 4 or 5 stars, then I will be open to reviewing the next in the series. If it is a 3 or below, I will not. I am a very big DNFer. I am a very big proponent of the idea that the first book needs to catch you. It should be one of the best in the series because you are trying to convince people to read the next one. Now, if you send me if we get to the 3rd or 4th book in the series and that one's a 3-star, I'm a little bit more lenient there and might continue, but the first book must be a minimum of a 4. If it is the minimum of a 4 and you would like to send me the next book, you do not have to send a full extra email, just like a short one being like, hey, the second one's coming out. Do you want it? You don't have to do the full thing. If it was less than a 3, I am still open to reviewing other aspects of your work or other books you've written outside the series. So if I got the first in a series and I'm like, not really feeling it, but you have a standalone or an entirely different series, I'm open for that one. But in general, just so I don't get bogged down in a sea of series, we're going to stick with that. Like I mentioned before, a low-star review does not preclude your work from being reviewed in the future. It could be as low as a 2 or 1. I am a sucker for a quote-unquote redemption arc. So if you got a low review, but you're still hoping that maybe this time this will be the book that does it, feel free to send me another review. That doesn't mean I'm automatically going to accept it. In most cases, I try to look at each review request in its own light, unless, of course, you are becoming one of my favorite authors, which I have a couple indie authors that they could probably just send me the next book and I'd be game. But for right now, for the most part, every new request will require a new email with all of the same things as the first one did. So on top of the review, on top of the actual standalone, your book will also pop up more on my channel. And I thought this was something that was just so understood in the bookish community. And I laugh so much because in BookTube, books pop up in a ton of different videos for a ton of different reasons. And your book is guaranteed to pop up in at least 2 videos. 1, its own book review, and 2, the monthly wrap-up. The monthly wrap-up for my channel is basically like a monthly check-in where I said, these are all the books I've read, and I will have the link to the review in the description box down there. So if you really want to see your book pop up more than once, it'll be there. The monthly wrap-up, by nature of including so many books in one video, I will not be talking about your single book as much. It'll be like a quick overview. And I've had some indie authors actually get nervous because they were like, oh, well, you repeated this critique in 2 videos. It's just a repeat of the review. It's a short version of the review. So if I say, oh yes, they needed to work on this in the review, and then I also said, oh yes, they need to work on this in the monthly wrap up, that doesn't mean like I'm twice as annoyed by it. That just means that it's what I consider the baseline for people to know watching it. Your book may also pop up in some other different videos. I've included review books in readathon vlogs or recommending books to other booktubers from other series. The only series that it will not be included in is the Best and Worst of Indie Books series, only because that series is purely made for books that I did not get for review, books I found off of BookBub or somewhere else. So it won't come up there, but pretty much everywhere else is game, and I include a lot of indie books in almost everything I do. So you could very well see your book pop up in like 4 or 5 videos. I can't say for sure. So if you have any questions about this review policy, feel free to email me or DM me on Twitter. I will have all of my info down below. This is a regularly updated document. I have added like, I think a page almost, or at least 3/4 of a page to this just over Indie August alone, because I've been interacting with so many more indie authors and get their questions about what I do or don't do. And so I've been constantly tweaking it. So who knows, this video could be outdated within a month. But for right now, I thought that I would just give you some more info than what's written on the page. I have been enjoying my Indie August so much. I have so many new indie books to review. Some of them I brought on myself, but I'm excited. So please stay on the lookout. I am going to fill this month with as much indie reviews as possible, as well as other indie content. So if you're interested in that, please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. And with nothing else, I hope you have a wonderful day and a marvelous tomorrow.